Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, well, latest post covering finance and property news. Monday evening once again, and of course that means that Edwin is with us. And Edwin, you didn't get washed away. How are you doing?
Oh, didn't get washed away, Martin. I had my galoshes on, and dusty, and we prepared for future downpours. Over just over a year ago, we shared on the show that we dug around the homes and the in the studios, and we created some trenches and put some ag line down, and keep the water away. You're in the mountains, but still there are parts of some homes came under. The question's going to be, Martin, from our previous floods in the mountains, was remember how a lot of the natural springs were filled up from all the runoff and all the saturation of the land, and that they just filled for nobody heard anything about those for the last 30, 40 years, and all of a sudden natural springs are popping up under people's homes. So we'll see what happens in the future. More of a reason why you should be checking, double checking, triple checking as to what the floodplains are, the old historical maps, where why certain areas of Sydney are called Jordan Springs, why they're called it's synonymous with waterways and the ponds, and everything else. So it's rather interesting to see how we're going to fare throughout winter. Is it going to be a cold, wet winter again? It's going to be very, very interesting. But certainly the property conversation and the conversations around the property market and what's happening in auction clearance rates and night and Tom Panels' index is going to keep things hot. It may be a cold, winter, cold and wet winter, but the chatter is going to be hot, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And down in the Illawarra, of course, it's been extremely wet. So this is a couple of shots of in and around Wollongong where the railway line has been washed away. And a lot of the local areas like Corrimal and Woonona, which of course are very close to Thirroul, absolutely crashed by the streams that come off the escarpment, turning into massive torrents. Many people were faced with, being washed away or lots of mud and what have you. And I guess the other interesting observation, Edwin, is, of course, the costs of insurance have gone absolutely through the roof. So the ABS reported a very significant rise in insurance costs that fed into the inflation number. And I know from my surveys that a lot of people have chosen not to get insurance because it's way too costly. They're making trade-offs between eating and insuring. And I just hope that some of those are not being, out of pocket simply because of the fact they weren't insured. But this is a warning, I think, about really thinking this through. And as you say, it could well be a wet and stormy winter as well. So not good.
No, not at all. And this is what we were discussing before the show, Martin. People are going to make do with a lot of other essential services or goods before thinking about paying the insurance premiums that allegedly have gone up by 50%, 50% over since 2020. I mean, this is huge. And you're underinsured. Do you stay underinsured? Do you don't get insurance? Do you take that gamble? Do you take that risk? Do you put it on your third, fourth credit card in order to live to tell the story over the next 12 months, survive the next 12 months? But the other question, Martin, is that what we're facing in the property industry, in the real estate industry, in the sector, as I've been keeping close tabs with George from industry training consultants, and that is the fact that a lot of insurance companies are not going to be paying out a lot of the claims for properties that are badly managed, that are not fit for use practically, or that you could say that they don't even meet the minimum standards as a rental. So there's and then you got to look at personal insurances as well. So prices go up, but you got to read the fine print. whether it's professional liability, public liability, professional indemnity, no matter what it is, whether it's a vehicle insurance, home insurance, you've got to really read the fine print and go to those clauses what you're not insured for that you think you are, and you could also pay the full freight that you're not insured for, and that's something that's that a lot of people are finding out in the industry, that the businesses are underinsured. There's a lot of things that the insurance companies won't cover, as I said, because for bad management, not keeping proper documentation for the rentals that they manage, and not pressuring the landlords to maintain the properties. So there's a lot going on. But one thing for sure, Martin, is as you and I know for sure, and that is insurances are in the business of making money, not paying out on claims, right?
No, absolutely. And one of the interesting observations that I see quite often is that the difference between maintaining a property well enough to stop water coming in versus water coming in from the outside in a sort of a flood event is quite a fine line. And certainly I've had a few stories quite recently where people who were effectively thinking that they were insured weren't actually covered because the insurers argued that it was to do with maintenance rather than to do with a one-off event. And that's a very important observation. If you have insurance, it doesn't negate the need to actually maintain your property.
No, and the other thing there is, Martin, it just came to mind was, if you look at the Winston Hills, Borkham Hills area, that is the sediment there is very, very, very acidic. There are a lot of areas that are very acidic, and if you read the contracts of sale of a lot of those properties, you get to find out what areas have got more an acidic base in the sediment. And when you get these sort of soakings and the saturations for years on end, the water permeates and goes right through to the bottom, and it affects the foundation of a lot of these properties. And you'll find that in a number of inspections that we've conducted for our clients, and others that weren't our clients, but they bought and they asked us for an opinion, and I've been able to see where the water, how it just travels from underground, and it affects the foundation, where you've got sandstone literally flaking away, and you've also got bricks that flake away. You just need to, you don't have to use any sharp object or a hammer or a sledgehammer to push those bricks out. You just use your finger, and you can virtually drill a hole in the sandstone or in the brickwork, because of the effect of the acidic, the concentration of the acid and the water, how it travels through the foundations. So this is where a lot of people, unfortunately, when they get caught up in the emotion of auctions, the short auction campaigns that we're seeing a lot of, buying pre-auction, buying properties pre-auction because they get all excited, or they want to have, and this, the fear of missing out is really driving a lot of that. A lot of people don't do the due diligence of their investigation, so and they fall over. And this is when they try to make a claim, or they think that they've got their house insured, they also don't realise that there's been a claim, historical claim, from the insurance company, that the house was flooded or was affected in one way or another, and that hasn't been rectified. But they don't know. The new purchaser doesn't know. And guess what, Martin? A lot of insurance companies share the database on faults within homes. This is where a lot of people don't realise and don't understand. If you think that insurance companies don't share databases as to faults or claims or that, I've got a bridge to sell you. In a nice house next to it, where from time to time you get opera singers in there. So this is what happens, because, as I said earlier on, insurance companies are not in the business of paying out; they're in the business of collecting money and making it very difficult for you to make a claim.
Spot on. And I think we're going to see more difficult stories about underinsurance and the implications. The final point here is, Edwin, we're thinking about mold, right? And there was this article quite recently highlighting the fact that a lot of tenants are in properties with significant mold problems because, of course, again, poor maintenance of the investment property. And there are meant to be some minimum standards, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact of the matter is that many people are choosing to live in mouldy homes because it's more difficult to find anywhere else to live. And I do think that the whole question of mold and the lack of ventilation, and it's true also, I think also not only in rental properties, but also some high-rise properties too in particular. This is another significant issue. With the amount of rain that we're getting at the moment, mold is also another factor.
Yeah, and this is where this is the ignorance of many in the industry that don't understand, and they think and they blame it on the tenant, and they say, or the people that are living in the properties, they blame it on them, and they say that you got to keep the windows open. Yeah, okay, yeah. In hindsight, that may be true, but how do you keep your window open when you've got a torrential downpour? And you've got to ventilate the place. The other thing, the other issue that we have with a lot of these high-rise developments or apartments in general is that the mechanical ventilation in a lot of the wet areas, kitchen areas, and laundry and bathrooms and en-suites, it's a minimum standard. So one of the things that we used to do with the property management team that I ran for many years is we would encourage the landlords to change the mechanical ventilation particularly in apartments to put a more robust mechanical unit in there, extraction unit in order to exhaust fan in order to ventilate the place a lot better. The other thing that we would always suggest is don't use bleach to try and attack mold, because bleach doesn't really do anything. It masks a lot of what's going on. The best thing to do is to really get a spray bottle and spray all the areas where you feel that are damp, in carpets, lounges, beds, bedding, kids' toys. And spray it with white vinegar, 9 parts white vinegar, 1 part methylated spirits. Because the methylated spirits helps the vinegar to dry a lot quicker. And then you wipe it off where you see the black mold. But that's just on what you see. From that, if you've got black mold, you can be rest assured that you've got the mold spores that have already spread throughout the property, and this is where you try to cover the surface with the white vinegar and and that mixture, and spray it lightly, just to like a mist around the areas in order for that to combat the spores that are floating around. That's one way, and you find that a lot of the professional people that deal with mold, they use a lot of extracts from the orange peels and the lemon peels, the citrus acids, in order to combat. And this is why I go back to what I learned over the years through different professionals is white vinegar, and you can get it at Bunnings, and a bit of methylated spirits and in a spray bottle will help you out. It doesn't solve the problem, because the problem could be penetration of water through the cavities of the walls, particularly in the high-rise developments or in unit blocks. You've got your properties in the higher levels that have got that the waterproofing's failed, and you've got the walls and the slabs are absorbing a lot of that moisture. So you've got all sorts of issues, but the majority of it comes back to, as I said, the mechanical ventilation, because a lot of the duct that's attached to the mechanical ventilation gets squashed as the building gets built by the mortar and debris that falls on it, and there's your problem.
Absolutely right. Well, it's partly when they were built, how they were built, whether they've been
Exactly.
maintained. So it's a critical issue. And I guess that's also worth contextualizing it. I mean, they're going to build more houses, right? At least that's the theory. Although I do note that Chris Minns is saying that they are unlikely to meet their housing target as proposed. And in fact, you picked up that and said, well, they finally got rounds to recognizing what we've said for how long?
Yeah, look, we've been saying this for over 12 months. So this is the whole thing. And by the way, I'd just like to welcome Chris to as a new follower of the show, because he's finally catching up. Although he's over 12 months behind in the show's mode, he's catching up nevertheless, right? He's finally realised that that the migrants that are coming in the majority don't really want to work in the construction industry. We were sharing this, almost 12 months ago. But the New South Wales Premier has raised serious concerns over particularly over the construction of the proposed construction of the units. We keep on talking about this stuff, Martin. We keep on talking and talking and talking. Well, not say we talk, we comment about it, but the politicians keep on talking and talking and talking, but nothing's really been built. And I can tell you now that developers don't want to build, and they're not going to they're not going to put their hands in their pockets in order to overpay in construction and the cost of the land. Albeit some are land banking, but it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the cost of construction and will these projects be finished is the biggest questions that they're facing, and they're not going to do it until they have guarantees from the government that should anything happen, that the government is not going to let them down. It's going to put the hands in the taxpayers' pockets and make us pay for the dodgy buildings that are going to be built anyway. So, as I said over and over again, and I've been saying it for decades, where they should have been chasing and they should have been putting pressure on, as much as Mintz wants to have a fight with the LGAs, he's not winning that fight, because now even Woollahra, I think, are about to put a covenant over of the properties around the railway station, put a heritage covenant on it, and there you go. You can whistle Dixie after that heritage covenant comes on to see if you can build any high rise around there. So this is what the LGAs are doing. They will get around any pressure that the state government's going to try and put on them. But as I've been saying for decades, Martin, when the answer is not high rise, has never been high rise. The answer was always small medium density development in order to keep up with the population growth, and now we've got to pay huge catch up. So you've got these derelict homes all around Sydney, north, south, east, and west, fibro homes that sit on 700, 800, 950 in parts of Turramurra, Wahroonga, and those areas, Pymble West. Sitting on 950 square meters, and you can't even build a duplex in a lot of these areas. The councils won't let you build duplexes or triplexes or four villas, and that was always the answer. But unfortunately, we're going to go to the high rise. We're going to be pushed, but sooner than later, there'll be announcements. There'll be announcements that a mega 2,000, 3,000 unit development is going to start off in Parramatta, Liverpool, and in some other area where it's flood prone, flood affected, and they're going to dig 4 basements in order to accommodate the vehicles, and there's going to be all sorts of issues. So we're in a mess. Whilst we focus on the high rise development, and whilst we obviously focus also on not pressing the pause button on the government initiatives with this immigration policy, it's not going to happen. So so finally, are they just waking up and then going back to sleep, or is it a turning point? I don't know.
I'm not sure that turning points exist on this argument. And look, it reminds me of the chart that we actually chatted about the other week, right? This one here, which actually is a very, very important chart because it really tells you all you need to know, right? Which is, we've got this: homes don't get built, immigrants need somewhere to live, house prices go up, house prices are too expensive. Tell people we must increase housing supply, import more immigrants to build houses. Houses don't get built. And you've shouted out to Rationally Aussie, who seems to have originated the chart.
Yeah, look, we thought it was Stomper, Oz Stomper that originated that chart. Well, that's what I thought anyway. But I made Rational Aussie the commitment to share, because we got to give kudos to where it or merit where it's yeah, where it's meant to be, right? So so shout out to Rational Aussie. It was a great chart, and he actually shared this. I missed it. He actually shared this, I think, in November of 2023. So good on you. That's a great meme, and keep on posting out some great memes on charts, because they certainly paint paint many words. A picture tells 1,000 words, and in this case, we just got to keep on painting them, because the politicians certainly aren't listening, and they're not reading a lot of the stuff that's been put out there. From different commentators, they're not reading, but sometimes a meme gets the right attention.
Yeah, and it is interesting in that context. Did you see that New Zealand have actually just announced that they've tightened their visa rules to try and actually cramp down on migration? So Canada, as this is what Tarek said, Canada, New Zealand and the UK governments have all admitted migration levels are unsustainable. And if you go back to that past chart that you referred to there, the key input was migration starting to drive the market. It's interesting that in Australia, the government has not officially admitted at all that there's anything wrong with very high migration. And in fact, Albo quite recently argued, well, we're just in catch-up mode, because we didn't bring a lot of people into the country through the COVID period, so we're just catching up, despite the fact that the numbers have now gone way higher than were expected. And whilst there's been a little bit of lip service with regard to turning the taps back, nothing is really happening. And so we've still got this massive flood of people coming in. But again, it's worth underscoring, people coming into the country are not people who aspire to be builders.
No, that's right. That's exactly right. And this is where the point that we've raised for over 12 months. And this is where they've got it wrong. And look, whilst it is like that, but the other thing we also got to understand is the pressure that the unions are putting on the government in order not to bring in people that can build to our standards, that where nations that are abroad that more or less are on par with our building standards. In some cases, even better than our current building standards, but can build. But they don't want to bring them on because then the government will have an issue with the unions. So this is one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations for the Labor government. And whilst you've got the union pressing that dagger in your back, well, you're not going to do anything, right? You're not going to do anything that's going to benefit. Look, and the unfortunate thing is, even if we went to the point that I keep on raising, and that is why we're not focusing on the local, the local talent that we have here, born and bred talent that we have. Why are we not focusing on the with a greater support and initiative and a bigger drive for the to support the apprenticeships and the apprentices? It's mind-boggling. So then obviously I'll put my conspiracy hat on, and I start having those funny discussions with Dusty about do we really want to change? Do the politicians really want to change the scenario? I mean, what we're going to have is we're going to have a lot of lip service about slowing down the immigration, no different to the lip service that we've been having about stopping the industry and the real estate agents from underquoting and saying that look, it's all under control. We've got it all under control, and look, we're out there. We're dishing out fines, and then when you start reading the reports, the fines are a measly $2,000 on major issues. I think a couple got a bit more than that. A couple of officers got a bit more than that. But at the end of the day, when they start relying on the halls of the REI New South Wales and start relying on my old mate Tim, of course he's going to say what he's going to say, as I put out there on the on the tweet. Tim's not going to say any better, because it's from the halls of the REI New South Wales that you get price it low, watch it go, price it high, watch it die.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, your post is a really interesting one if you actually go through it, because there are some important truths here that buyers need to be well prepared and well aware of local price points in the area where they're looking to buy. Because if you're not, then you're going to get taken for a ride, aren't you?
Definitely. Look, we're looking at a house right now. We're looking at a house right now. I won't say the location or the area. Well, I can give you the price point. The current guide is 3.1, right? The current guide is 3.1 million. And that's been the guide for the last 2 weeks. And nothing in that area, nothing in there, in inferior homes in that area have sold for 3.6, 3.7. Now, this is a much superior home, and given the current demand that we have, but we know we're going in there with our eyes wide open, and because we know the price points of the area, we know what the demand is, we know the demographic that are influencing that area, but the interesting thing again is it's in your face. It really is in your face. So what? You've copped a $2,000 fine. So what? But you've got 50 people to the auction that have all of which 20 parties have registered, and each party has spent no less than $600 to vet the contract of sale. They didn't proceed to the purchase, but they've still got to pay the solicitor or the conveyancer a fee for initially vetting the contract. Okay, in some cases it may only be $400, $450, but on average it's about $600. Even if you're not successful, you don't go through the whole motions, you're still going to get charged. On top of that, you wasted all that time, you wasted all that energy. Fair enough, the building and pest reports that were provided by the agent are only now worth 45 from before you bid. But you're better off going to Aldi and buying a 45 packet of rolls of toilet paper, because that'll benefit you more than the actual building and pest report that the agent provides. So that's really worth nothing. You can't even wipe your backside with it after you've gone to the toilet. So this is the whole thing. This is the industry. This is the industry in a nutshell, right? But if you don't go in there with eyes wide open, you're going to walk away disgruntled. But that's the. I asked the question, Martin. I asked the question over and over and over again. Is it necessary? Is it really necessary in this marketplace right now, where the demand is so high in a lot of markets of Sydney? Is it necessary to play these games? But it's not necessary. You don't have to do it. They're like kids. They just can't help themselves. They're just like drug addicts that are on crack. And like politicians, they're like the stamp duty. So it's the same. It's almost like the same. You got to have that same fix, right? But then again, you've got to justify why you've paid $5,000 to be taught this at an REI New South Wales convention, or ARIC, or wherever else, where these people that sit on the board, that sit in the boards of the REI New South Wales, or REIV, or REIW, or REIA, where it's from their offices that the manuals were written on how to deceive the general public. I mean, we've got the manuals, we've got the transcripts, we've got the receipts, as they say, and I've got the videos of our mate Tom as to how it's all played out, how you play it out. I mean, and it's a general chatter in the industry. I just wish I could, I'd have better tools to record a lot of the conversations that I have. I keep on asking the licensees in charge of the auctions that I attend on a weekly basis for our clients. And I keep on asking the license, why are you allowing this? Why do you allow it? Why? They've got no fear when the fine is $2,000. Make the fine $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, and then we've got a game on our hands. And then have the fair trading inspectors out in force on a Saturday and attend the auction and ask for the files, and then we've got a chance at curbing the shenanigans. But whilst they go and grovel to the REI in New South Wales, we're not going to get any change. Unfortunately, it's going to keep on happening. That's why people just got to wise up, and buckle up, because as I predicted back in 2022, that underquoting was going to get worse in 2023 and moving forward, regardless of the fact that we've got such small numbers on market. The demand is greater than what it has been in 2023 and 2022, and it's just I don't know. It's just entrenched. It's just part of the DNA.
Well, the point is, Edwin, $2,000 is just the cost of doing business, right? So if you get caught, it's not enough to make a difference. Whereas if you actually are able to underquote and you fool people into coming and bidding, and then get caught up in the momentum of the auction and end up with a higher price as a result of it, then you win, because of course you get a commission on the sale. So that's the pure trade-off, and it's not right. And yet, as you say, the estate agencies around the place often use this tactic, and it's getting worse, not better.
Yeah, and it is what it is, and I'm sure that this isn't working like a charm over in Victoria, because they've got a hell of a lot more listings. There's a lot less demand, and so and this is, but anyway, we can talk till the cows come home, Martin, about this, and I share a video on Twitter of this head that keeps on hitting this wooden head that keeps on hitting the brick that's on auto drive, and that's how you feel sometimes, and then we can just keep on going. But let's get on to more fun stuff, Martin. The WeChat chatter reports. This is getting. Why was Janet yelling in Guangzhou, Martin? Tell me, why was she in China?
Oh, well, here you go. She's got to. I believe there were quite a few people over there actually, with a party of politicians and business people over in China trying to drum up some trade or something. I don't know quite what it was, but it's interesting. But what about the eating habits? Was that discussed?
Oh yeah, look, the main the serious part first, right? The reason why she was over in China is my understanding from the WeChat chatters, the WeChat chatter reports that Dusty and everyone been getting is obviously Janet Yellen wants China not to flood the market, the European and the US markets with cheap EVs, EV cars or vehicles and solar panels. What China wants in return from the WeChat chatter reports is they say, okay, well, we'll listen to that, we'll pay attention, but you also need to give us the new, keep supplying us with the new generation chips to facilitate the advances in the AI technology that they're so keen on. So that's the official story, right? Some are saying, just got to make sure that the tapes and that the CCP have on the US politicians don't get leaked before the US election. That's on the side. That's the cheeky side of the WeChat. But I guess most of the things that were discussed, but from the social media. From the chatter on social media and on WeChat there in mainland China was the Yellen's eating habits, yes, as you mentioned. The actual menu, that's Yellen's menu of what she had for Yamcha. Those that want to use Google Translate, you can translate all those. There's some interesting dishes there that she savored, and the restaurant that they went to. Toto Goy is a restaurant that Dusty and Evan and myself I've been there. I've actually been there. And if you see that Lucky Charm at the back behind me, Martin, the WeChat chatterers that we met at the airport this morning bought that over for me for this year for good luck. And it was blessed by the priest from the temple in old Guangzhou, or as others call it, Gonzo. That's just around the corner from this restaurant, which I attended as well. So so the chatter was gone. So it's interesting, but look, I guess how does that reflect on us, right? That's the interesting thing that our viewers want to have a better understanding. And you look at how America is reaching out to China to mend that severed relationship that's there. So obviously we're part of the Five Eyes. So whatever America does, Australia's got to do. Now, let's not forget that not too long ago, about 5-6 weeks ago, Chris Minns had a meeting with the Chinese delegation as well here in New South Wales. And this is what I posted on X back then. I said, pay attention, pay very close attention, because we're going to certainly open up the doors. And if you remember our conversations from about 3-4 months ago, where there was this big upheaval about Chinese migrant, Chinese money coming over, and I said once things lay low a bit, die down a bit, all the people that are making all that noise, once that sort of quiet down a bit, then different things are going to happen. Why? Because obviously, we need to sell China our iron ore. Once we're going to do what our big brother does, right? So if America gets back in bed with China, hence the reason why Yellen was there, and we all obviously got to start trading again, and China going to be looking again a lot more into our iron ore, into our lobsters, wines, and everything else in between. And of course, let's not forget the property, because we are the flavour of the month of the year for Chinese money. So there's a lot of coming back. So look, that's what it means for us. That those trade routes are going to be open up, and we're going to be opening up our doors. So unfortunately, folks, we've got more money, and there'll be means and ways for the very affluent to take money out of mainland China. But let's not forget all the money that's already outside of mainland China to be parked in our shores, unfortunately. And this is a play, and this is what the WeChat chatterers are talking from abroad. The local chatterers obviously picking up on that. The local chatterers are picking up on that, and along that thread. So if America get in bed with China, where does it leave? Where does it leave us? And the local chatterers are hot to trot on that build up of the relationship. But they brought out an interesting point today, the local chatterers, and which is something that they said, look, they're going to, obviously there's the government are talking about tapering down or turning down the volume of the PR holders, but they're not going to pull back on students, and they're not going to pull back on tourists, which is something that we need as well, because that is one of our pillars of our economy, right? Tourism. So what does that mean? They're all excited, because to them it means the students that are going to be coming in greater mass, and also the tourists, they're going to be here. If you're a student, they're going to be here anywhere between 2 and 5 years. So you've got to accommodate them. And the tourists are going to be here anywhere between 3 months to 12 months, and depending on what sort of tourist visa they get, if they can work as well. And so the local agents and some of the local chatter in the local groups, you've got real estate agents, and this is a post from a real estate agent of already promoting the new trend, which is, we talked about illegal boarding houses, we've talked about budget accommodation, and now they're talking about guest houses. So the terminology is changing, but it's the same. It's the same scenario. It's the same fiasco where you've got homes, and this is a particular home in Guildford that's being advertised to the WeChat chatterers that I want to do, and it goes back, throughout all that. It tells you where it is. It's in Guildford. It's in Sydney. It's in Guildford. It's a central location. Boarding house. Then he changes it to guest house in Chinese. Gives you all the attributes, and at the bottom you see that this house is getting $2,000 a week in rental return, cash in your hand, Martin. So it's not a bad investment when you look at it. So even real estate agents with licenses are going back hard at trying to capture that new money, that's coming in from abroad through the WeChat channels.
Very interesting, Edwin, and it resonates very strongly with what we've been saying about the conversion of properties into multiple smaller units of various sorts and sizes, right? And it's all playing into that significant demand from students and other temporary people in the country. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this because, there's a lot of money flying around and a lot of demand. And properties are being bought up and converted, and quite often converted without any planning requirements, or if there was a requirement, they don't do them anyway. So it's just done quietly, and you suddenly find you've got a couple of extra rooms and a few extra bathrooms and things just thrown in.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So the unfortunate thing is, though, for the people that do want to buy, for the people that the Aussie battlers, the people that are trying to get into the market, what's their option? What's their option, Martin? As that entry point, which I said 2.5 years ago was absolutely going to be gazumped. When all these grants were being handed out and dished out by the then Liberal governments, and he was only putting pressure on prices, and prices are going to increase, and the people that got sacrificed were the first-time buyers, because we went from a $750,000 dwelling property went to started pushing upwards of 900, and that price point, that entry point, just became unattainable. But there is a solution. There is a solution, Martin, and if we follow our cousins in America, we too could buy property. Friends with benefits, new home buying move that's taken off in America. But I personally, I would have thought that a better heading would have been stay warm this winter. Would have been a better heading than friends with benefits. Because and as some put up in Twitter as well, Nicholas Rayner said that's not what friends with benefits means, based on what was in that story. So is it a push from the real estate, from the halls of realestate.com.au for people to for the young people to start doing the same, but it's fraught with a lot of danger. If you look at what the stuff that gets done over in America, it's not necessarily going to fly here in Australia. You've got legal implications, you got borrowing implications, you got all sorts of issues as are put out there on X, and as we're going to raise in a quick discussion now.
Well, it is very interesting, and I do note actually that the information that's come out with regard to lending trends is quite relevant here. So this is from the ABS, and they've actually said that investor loans rose 1.2% in February, so they're quite strong. And that was 21.5% higher compared to a year ago. But the other interesting observation there was that the total number of first owner occupier loans rose 0.9% in February. The number of owner-occupier first home buyer loans rose 4.3%. and were 13.2% higher compared to a year ago. So what's interesting, if you just think about that, the total number is up, but the value of new owner-occupied loans were 9.1% higher compared to a year ago, and 20.7% from a year ago. So that what that means is that we've got considerable uplift in the average size of the first home buyer loan. Now, you can ask yourself, why is it happening? Of course, they're chasing higher prices, as we've discussed previously. We also know that family bank is part of the story. So whether that's bank of mum and dad, or a sibling, or even another relative, maybe grandparents, helping to buy. But the other one is this reconfiguration where, in fact, you've got people clubbing together to buy. But as you say, there are a lot of questions here with regard to the implications, both legally, what happens if one party wants to move on later, and also, of course, how you actually position the loan across multiple parties with the lender, and what happens if one of them actually gets into difficulty. And we also know that quite a few first home buyers who are reliant on the bank of mum and dad get into difficulty later because they haven't done the work to save, which means that they're more likely to default later, which can put pressure on families too. So this is fraught with danger in my view. And I'm afraid it's just another indicator of problems across the property sector. And first-time buyers are right in the front line. And in some cases, of course, they're being persuaded to buy property that's not necessarily most expensive property, so it's further out, or it's second tier property, it needs more work. And I do get a sense that some renters are just saying, I'll buy anything just to get into the market because I can't afford to continue to fight in the rental sector. So there's a very important story here below the waterline.
Yeah, and that's a crazy point that we're in. It just a lot of this stuff just doesn't really. If you were an alien, you just landed, you couldn't make sense of this. What we're putting our people, young people through. It's crazy, and this is but it's only going to continue. The unfortunate thing, Martin, is that it's only going to continue. It's going to continue for another 3-5 years at a minimum. And that's at a minimum because of the simple fact that we're not building, we're not putting a real stop to those immigration levels, and we're not building quick enough. And everybody keeps on talking about building, but nothing. I'm not seeing shovel put to the ground. That's the unfortunate thing. That's the unfortunate state that we're in, Martin. And then we keep on going around in circles with a lot of stories. And the story that we shared a few weeks back with regards to asbestos is now, the recycling of the what should have been just recycling or reconstituting the vegetation, or the trees that they're knocking down, and churning it into mulch to then mulch the parkways, and everything else is now being again contaminated with asbestos in Victoria. And the interesting thing there, Martin, is how the commentator there from News Melbourne, 7 News Melbourne, said that it's her understanding. I know where she got it from, but her understanding that that the bonded asbestos posed no threats. And the other interesting thing there was in that snapshot that you've got up there is that how a lot of the people that were there picking up the pieces from the grounds that the children were playing in. I think it's now up to 8 different areas. They're not wearing any hazmat or any protection. Some of them were wearing a mask and gloves, but the majority weren't. And they're handling the asbestos pieces bare hands. And I guess afterwards you could probably they went out for a meat pie or fish and chips. I don't know. I'm just asking.
Well, I mean, I don't know where to start with this because, of course, I have a personal interest in raising the risks of asbestos. But it just seems astonishing to me that they continue to push the line that if it's bonded, it's not a problem, despite the fact that it's clearly broken into small pieces, as you can see from those pictures, and being handled without any care or attention. That's a real big problem. And I'm afraid that I believe that this is just the tip of the iceberg, because we know that there are many, many situations where asbestos is still very much in situ and is still potentially highly risky, both in residential contexts, but also in parks and places like that. I mean, this is a huge issue. And again, I'm afraid the issue is being played down and belittled, but it's a deadly, deadly issue.
Yeah, the thing that really got under my skin, Martin, if I could say, is the fact that you've got, if our viewers go and pick up that video and watch it, or repost it on X, and you actually see them bending it, folding it, trying to break it, right in front of your eyes. This was just one of the shots, but there's another one where somebody's handling it. I mean, for a minute there, a minute there, I actually thought that the cameraman was going to pan back, and the person that was holding and trying to break this piece of asbestos, bonded asbestos in two. I thought he was going to stick it in his mouth and try to break it with his teeth. That was the only next thing to do. That's why I put that up there on the tweet. Fish and chips afterwards, lads. It's crazy. Well, you got to watch. I don't know if you got a chance to watch the video. It just sends the wrong message. And again, that's the message that I put up on the tweet where Moira, the MP, after she posted her story, that got picked up there, and I said, on that tweet, I said, and you thought doing a renovation rescue or renovation challenge live on Channel 9, 7 or 10 was fraught with danger, as it taught people to be complacent re-asbestos when watching contestants demolish wet areas in old homes. Now, I wrote a story, and I think it's still floating around. I haven't looked at my LinkedIn profile for about 5 years, but I think it's floating around in my LinkedIn profile somewhere from years ago, and how those shows. The last time I watched one of those shows was about 8 or 9 years ago, and I think that's when I wrote the story. Was probably even a bit longer than that. Was how they were so complacent in showing people demolishing old bathrooms, and from you could see from the facade of the homes, and and some of the shows actually gave you an idea where the homes were. You could work out where they were eventually, and you could tell that these homes were built in the 70s and early 80s. And it's a 50-50. You call whether or not the fibre sheeting that we use in the wet areas were asbestos sheeting as well. The fibre sheeting contained asbestos, but there was no notion of telling the viewers of those shows that, hey, when you're dealing with this, you got to get it tested, this, that, and the other. I mean, these people were coming out of those, were sleeping, if you recall, in those earlier shows, Martin. People were actually sleeping in the demolition, in the homes that they were demolishing and renovating for these renovation rescue shows. And that's when I wrote that story, and I put it up somewhere, probably in my LinkedIn profile somewhere, how in the future, you're probably going to have a lot of these contestants making, suing those producers or those media companies, because they're going to find out that they're going to have issues, health issues, from those renovations makeshift. But not only that, but it was just the bad message, the wrong message that it sent to the general public. And this is why you got these issues, because the wrong message has been sent across the board for the last 30 years.
Spot on, Edwin. Well, I have to remind everybody again that there are thousands of people who die every year from asbestos exposure, and there is no cure for mesothelioma, which is what my wife died from. And it's in about 1/3 of buildings across the country. And even new materials imported from places like China can still contain asbestos. And the myth that if you don't touch it, it's not a problem is also just that, a myth, because it does fragment over time. And of course, the costly measures that are required to handle asbestos when it's in situ and get it out means that corners are often cut, it's often just buried or it's dumped. And that can be another problem because it then gets into the environment again. This is a man-made problem. And unfortunately, state and federal governments want nothing to do with it. They play it down. And as you say, those TV programs are in the same bucket. They just don't want to raise the real issue. But I always believe, Edwin, that whether you're a tenant or whether you're actually an owner-occupier of a property or an investor, you need to think about asbestos. You need to assume the risk of asbestos can exist and make sure that you check it out rather than just assume that everything is fine. And just to remember that there's about 30 different types of asbestos that can still be found in all sorts of different circumstances in and around a property. It's also found in schools as well. It's found in government buildings. And so this is one of the biggest black marks on the way that governments have handled it over the year. It's one of the biggest health issues that are out there. And I continue to preach the gospel that people need to be aware because governments have walked away from it.
Yeah, and this is the thing, and this is where people are going to make the wrong decisions when they go out and buy. They're not going to do the proper due diligence, they're not going to do the proper checks and balances, all because of the numbers continue to remain low. But fortunately, Martin, this week we've got 100 more listings, or just over 100 more listings on market than what we had same week in 2023. But they're still very low. People are still jumping up and high-fiving everybody on social media posts all over the place, calling on the fact that the numbers, there's been a pile-up of numbers. We still don't see it, but there is. We are tracking 100 or so, just over 100 more than what we were tracking same week in 2023. We'll just got to keep wait and see, watch and see what happens moving forward as we now start getting into the beginnings of the winter months.
Yeah, it is interesting because generally you don't see this little spike, I guess, after the Easter break, but 15,852, that was on the 1st of the 1st of April, I should say. And that's in the Sydney region. Now 16,033. So let's not get too excited. It's a slight move up. And your chart shows that it's, whoa, could it be slightly ahead of last year now for the first time for a long time, right? But I mean, it's not enough to really get right home about. And then if you look at Melbourne, 26,587 on the 1st of April, compared with 27,226, so another slight rise. And interestingly, Edwin, what I see there is the continued rise of ex-investment properties being listed in the Melbourne region. I made a show yesterday where I started to map the net investment yields, and it's scary how many areas in and around Melbourne are in negative territory. So no surprise that many investment properties are coming on the market.
Yeah, and that's again, we still haven't heard anything in the mainstream media as to the two different markets and what's being played out. The unfortunate thing, Martin, is that a lot of people get caught up in looking at the Melbourne market and they're looking at the Melbourne market and they're saying, oh yeah, it's a turning point. That's it. Property is now going to go on it's on a downer now. Yeah, let's just get out there. But unfortunately, folks, the numbers aren't reflective of what we have in Melbourne. We've almost got double the amount of numbers on market in Melbourne than what we have in Sydney, and more to the point is the number of homes on market in Sydney, because that is what a lot of the people are chasing, and that's where you see some crazy auction sales, crazy momentum and prices being paid, at the end of the day. I don't have anything for let's get out of Victoria segment. Everything seems to be on the upbeat for now in Melbourne, but I'm sure there'll be something for next week
Well,
Brisbane,
let's just put this slide up. This is quite interesting. This is from PropTrack, and they
okay.
actually reported home price changes across the country. And it's interesting just to note that Melbourne, they claim, moved very slightly up, 0.27% in the month, which is actually one of the lowest, other than Hobart, who actually went backwards, right, with an annual growth of 1.65%. But they're claiming that there's an annual growth in Melbourne of 1.71%. Now, if you compare that with Sydney, annual growth of 8%, and you want to go up to Brisbane, annual growth of 12.9%, or even Adelaide, annual growth of 13.47%, or Perth, an annual growth of 16.2%. So Melbourne is still in the doldrums. And the point I want to make, Edwin, is that the CoreLogic numbers were a bit different from these. So there is some arguments amongst the, the various reporting agencies as to what prices are doing. And I come back to the point again, averages like this don't really help very much. But I'm sure we'll be able to find some more why there's a problem in Melbourne when we look ahead, because we just know there will be significant issues. Now, I will make the point though, in Brisbane, of course, the media is still talking Brisbane up. House prices tipped to soar in Brisbane another 18% by mid 2027, according to one analyst's Oxford Economics, actually, led by strong migration and bright investment prospects. There you go, you see. And they're claiming that units could be up by 21% in 3 years, despite the fact I noticed that the master builder said that the cost of a new home for an occupation was 4.9% higher on average than a year ago. So that's the costs. So there's something a little bit weird there. And it is just worth reflecting, I guess, on Brisbane, because we know that the Brisbane market is relatively contained relative to the other markets. And if you look at the numbers in the Brisbane market, you can see that, the 1st of April, 3152 and 3283 a week later. So there's a little bit of increased listings, but still pretty low. So I wouldn't get too excited about the prospects for the Brisbane market either. I also think that we're seeing quite considerable levels of mortgage stress in and around some of the areas in Brisbane now, because people are reaching up to try and get those properties with a bigger mortgage, and of course the mortgage costs. And in fact, tomorrow on my live show, I'm going to be looking at some of the postcodes in and around Brisbane as part of that. So if people want to come along and ask about a particular postcode, then they can do that tomorrow. But I will just make the point, Edwin, that the auctions are still well, in a bit in the doldrums, aren't they?
Yeah, look, it's just no different to where they were last year in a sense.
Mm.
The numbers are still there. People still prefer. Obviously, you're going to get uh, a lot of agents. A lot of agencies are pushing for auctions because it's a quicker campaign. And some of the auctions that used to be historically used to be anywhere between, the campaign used to be 6 to 8 weeks. Now in some cases gone to 2 weeks on market, and third week the day of the auction, because of the strong demand, or a lot of properties are getting taken out before the official auction day. That's homes and apartments that are being basically put the winning bid in, get the keys and move in, where there's nothing to do, or in areas that are very sought after. So it's just another way of selling. What I found interesting was that and you've got now Domain are putting out the proportion of distressed listings, and we're going to see a lot of auction campaigns that are going to be using terminology in their auction campaigns. A lot of agents are going to be using terminology in order to bait a lot of people, thinking that the vendors are really desperate. The only thing that the vendors are desperate is for you to turn up and have more, a bigger crowd, so that they can get a bigger price point at the end. And this is what I say on a lot of the social media posts, and when I talk to a lot of people, when they bring out all these distressed listings, or I know Louis Christopher has a distressed listing chart as well. But at the end of the day, define distressed. What is distress? Just because real estate agents use terminology such as need to sell, must sell, own, assess, sell, and when you start ranking listings based on what the agent says, I mean that tells me one thing: that one, you believe, holders bowlers, that the selling agents are telling the truth all the time. And therefore you're going to believe everything that they put on paper, and what they put on the marketing campaigns. And the other thing is that really there's no real gauge on how true those stories are and genuine, because when you start talking and conversing with you, it's just a marketing strategy, and therefore you need to be educated a little bit more as to all the shenanigans and all the devices or the tools that agents use in order to get you there, get you interested in opening up that link, get you interested in opening up, because it all plays a role in the Google searches, in the rankings, in the so that they can then tell the story to the neighbours and get another listing. So I just thought it was an interesting chart that they're bringing out, copying SQM, copying Louis' distressed listings charts as well. But as I also said to Louis, define what distressed is. And if it's at what point is it distressed? It's not until you see a mortgagee sale. Then you could really genuinely say it's distressed.
Yeah, good point. And in fact, in my show yesterday, I did actually put up a map that showed where the risk of default was higher. And it's quite interesting. It's not uniform across the country. But you're right. Distress is more about marketing ploys than anything meaningful in my view. So I don't take it seriously at all, I'm afraid. Call me an old skeptic, but that's how I think about it. Now, let's quickly talk about rents, because the rentals are, up a little bit. So in Sydney, 8272 on the 1st of April, 9297 a week later on the 8th of April. And in Melbourne, 8241 on the 1st and 8713 on the 8th. So we're seeing a slight rise in the lift of available properties for rent, but they're still quite low. The vacancy rates are still very low. And certainly in my surveys, I'm seeing a lot of people still struggling to find somewhere to live, having to pay quite a lot more for it. And quite a few people are still being slugged with very significant rate increases. So I would expect to see the inflationary factor from rents, which was higher this last month, continue in the months ahead, because there's still a lot of pressure there and not really very good supply. So it's not a very good story, unfortunately, in the rental sector, which is why I'm continuing to see some people deciding to buy almost anything, without necessarily doing the due diligence and without necessarily being careful enough. They just want to get out of the rental sector. So it's a natural fallout of the broken rental sector, which of course is in turn linked very strongly to the high migration and the lack of supply, all the things we've been talking about. So it's all linked. But the danger is that some people are going to buy properties that potentially are not good value, and therefore they're going to maybe regret it down the line.
100%, and this is the thing. There's been a bit of a rise, you could say 1,000 new rental listings. I rang around, and quite a number of new buildings have come on, have finally got the occupation certificates. So you've got a lot of apartments in different parts in the the southwest region of Sydney that have come on. So that could be part of that rise, but it's still very, very, very low in comparison to the amount of people that need to be housed, and future levels of input into the arrivals certainly are part of the equation, which is the unfortunate thing.
Spot on, Edwin. Well, as we come to the end of our show, thoughts on tip of the week?
Look, the tip of the week is really what we discussed earlier on at the beginning of the show as well, which is really don't skimp on don't skimp on insurance. And perhaps I could extrapolate a little bit more, thinking a little bit more is don't skimp on your health either. It's not worth it. You could perhaps shop around for insurance policies, but health wise, I encourage people if you're going to perhaps you could say eat less, but eat better. Eat better. You can eat less, but you can certainly eat better. You can avoid a lot of your fast food outlets. I mean, you can't get anything there. You don't know what's in there. I saw a Big Mac being put on a fire, and an open fire, and it didn't burn for a very, very long time. So you just got to wonder what the hell's in the Big Mac these days, right? I might try that experiment with a Big Mac, a quarter pounder, and a cheeseburger. I haven't had those for years. So let's see what's there. So I guess from that point of view, it's a sad state of affairs, Martin. But I know insurance is very costly. That's health insurance, car insurance, home insurance, home and content insurance. But also, as I said, just expand that a little bit and don't skimp on your health.
Good advice, Edwin. And I do think that those who have to make really difficult trade-off decisions between, buying stuff to eat versus insuring the house, for example, which is people are having to make those sorts of trade-offs and, skimping on the quality of food or do I not reinsure the house? These are really, really difficult decisions. And many people, I think, are going to end up making decisions which they may regret later when suddenly we find the heavens open and, massive amounts of water get into property. So we are in a very difficult time at the moment. And unfortunately, I'm afraid that this is going to continue for some time. I suppose that gives us another reason to come back on next week and talk some more about what we're seeing in the property sector. So we'll be back. And Edwin, I want to say thank you very much for your thoughts, opinions, and slides and things today. And I look forward to doing it all again next week. Have a great week.
Likewise, Martin. You look after yourself.
Take care. Cheerio. Bye-bye.